on to introducing the next section. So I will swiftly hand over to Rob Timony from AudioXi to lead our next session, which is a panel of audio experts, which will discuss the future of audio a little bit further, especially focusing on innovation and creativity as two of the keys for its success. So over to you, Rob. That's the beauty of live streaming. Everyone is on mute. No. Rob. We've got Rob. I see familiar faces. I think. So one message to the directors of our web streaming here. Rob is saying that he needs to be added. Oh, he's been added. I see him. See the beauty of live streaming. Anyhow, Rob, over to you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Clementina. And firstly, thanks for everyone for joining today's panel. Thanks to IAB Europe for putting together such an excellent one. My name is Rob Timony. I'm Business Director of AudioXi, which is Ireland's largest digital audio exchange. And I'm also Chair of IAB Ireland's Digital Audio Council. We've got a fantastic panel here for you today with a variation of backgrounds across digital audio. So just to start, I'm delighted to be joined by Moomal, who is Senior Product Manager at Oracle and closely works with some of the largest audio publishers in the world. So Moomal, thanks for joining us. Secondly, we have Artur Semionov, who is Head of Product and Innovation at Xaxis across the EMEA region. And he has been working on their audio initiatives since 2015, I think, Artur, if I'm right.
Correct.
We are joined by Elsa Kalervo, who is Digital Audio Manager in Bauer Media, Finland, and also Chair of the Digital Audio Task Force there. So Elsa, you're very welcome and thank you for joining us. So our panel today is all around the future of digital audio with a focus on creativity and innovation. And according to the latest IAB Europe attitudes to programmatic advertising, digital audio is earmarked as a key driver for future digital investment. So really what we want to look at here are what are the biggest innovations in digital audio and really what does the future look like. And if we look at creative in the audio environment, it's something that personally I'm hugely passionate about. So let's start there. A nice broad one to open. And really what we're trying to understand is why is creative so important in the audio environment? So Artur, we might jump to your good self first on that.
Happy to kick off. Thank you, Rob, and thank you for the intro. It's been I've been listening to the full agenda. It was very interesting to hear all the ideas. I think from a creative point of view, well, arguably you can say that the creative for audio in audio environment is especially important, given the immersiveness. If you think about listening in the headphones and the streaming music, or specifically when you're listening to the podcast, for example, you get of the listener at this point, and the creative aspect from the advertiser perspective needs to be tailored to that environment, very personalized environment, and tailored to have a proper tune of the audio ads to make sure that when you have the full attention of the listener, it's properly adjusted for the environment. And on the back of that, I think from evolution of the digital audio and programmatic coming into space, there's definitely much more data points and options that can be used to actually play around and be creative in this aspects from the advertiser.
Absolutely, and it's something that I look forward to getting stuck into in a couple of questions time, Artur. And Elsa, in your eyes, I suppose from the publisher point of view, why is creative so important in the audio environment?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think emotion is the key here. Studies have shown that the best ways to affect feelings and conjure up memories are through senses of smell and hearing. Now, in the at the smell kind of hard to come by in the digital world, but hearing we can affect. So that's why I think creativity in audio ads is so important. We have this amazingly versatile medium that we can use to get to the core of people's emotional center and leave a very lasting impression. You know, how we feel about brands and is the key to successful advertising. And since much of the emotional information we have comes from sound, audio is the most powerful way to influence the way we feel about those brands. And that's where creativity comes to play. It's all about the emotional connection. And as actually Adam Bauer said in the panel before, you really need to put an effort into the ads to be able to stand out and actually come up with emotional response in the audience.
Absolutely. And I would agree in a big way there. It's all around the, I suppose, the art of audio advertising with the science of digital media buying is a lovely snapshot that I always like. And Moomal, I suppose from your side of things and what you would work at in terms of measurement and effectiveness, where do you see creativity playing its role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's many reasons why it's important, but one interesting way to think about this is probably to take a step back and go back to why audio itself is such an important environment. And I usually borrow this theory from Bob Pittman, who's the CEO of iHeartMedia. He refers to audio as a medium which is more like a companion. So it's more about like companionship, and it's true. You know, if you're doing your laundry, and if you are going for a run, going for a drive, if you are getting dressed in the morning, listening to a podcast, or winding down and listening to music, there's this connection and intimacy that you have with the audio platform. So I think one of the things that we often think about over here is audio is not just TV without screens. It's actually a very intimate, powerful tool of connection. A lot of what Elsa and Artur were saying as well, that emotional connection that you can create. So if you think about like a horror movie that you're watching, if you turn the sound off or if you put completely different music on there, it completely alters your experience of that horror movie itself. Or if what Artur mentioned as well, like the seamless experience of listening. If I'm listening to something mellow and you send me an ad that's like super loud and noisy, it's gonna jar me out of my experience. Or if I'm listening to something upbeat, getting excited for this panel, and you send me an ad for like a funeral home, it's probably not gonna go very well. So I think that for brands and agencies, it's really important to think about how they can thoughtfully and mindfully insert themselves as a creative, as a sonic identity into the listener's listening experience.
Absolutely. And Artur, it was something that you had just mentioned into there. And I suppose there's so many data points now available on listeners, and Moomal, it adds into your point as well. How can advertisers utilize this in their creative, and I suppose how are they doing it currently as well?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunities now available from the advertiser perspective to be the creative with the audio advertising. Has been mentioned previously and a couple of times, like the emotional component that is important when it comes to creativity. And it doesn't have to be very fancy even. The basic targeting capabilities that you can do with dynamic creative, like mentioning time of the day or day of the week, can have an impact. And this can be even overlaid with the weather targeting, which some advertisers do. And I think, well, talking from personal experience, like when I hear an ad that is connected to the reality, even mentioning the time of the day or day of the week, it kind of draws my attention more significantly, because it feels like it's real. It's not just noise on the back end. It's connected to what's happening right now in my location, or in its particular day of the week, or if it's raining outside, and that's I'm getting an advice of something. I think that's very important, and this is something that we can do now with all the data points available, and something that was also mentioned previously in the example of how Tesco is using this is targeting specific segments and users, and getting some more feedback about how users interacting with those ads, and getting new ideas and which segments of users are interacting with those ads. It's kind of closing the loop of planning, activating, and measuring, and trying to reevaluate the whole advertising strategy.
Okay, excellent. And Elsa, how are you seeing the data points being used on listeners to inform that creative process and the ads back to the audience?
Well, as Artur said, that there are so many data points that you can actually use. I feel that there are advantages, but there are also problems in this, and it comes from the fact that different media houses or different publishers are using different ways to measure audio, and it can be hard or actually even impossible to compare numbers when the publisher uses, listens or streams. One uses starts, downloads, etc. So I think this is a point that the advertisers who are using digital audio must keep in mind, that what the data point actually refers to. And I think that one data point that wasn't added here was listen through rate, which was actually mentioned before. And it's such a good measurement to show that the audience is very committed to the content and engaged until the very end. And that I think that especially in podcasts comes to play.
Okay, great. And I suppose, Moomal, you would have touched on it there in terms of, that integrated environment, the emotional connection. In terms of like binaural or 3D audio, do you see that being used in the future now? We have a more immersed listener. They're probably listening with headphones on. Do you see that as an opportunity in the future?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of opportunities for brands and agencies to get really creative and innovative with what they can do across audio. So I think the interesting thing about 3D audio is it's like truly bringing you into this experiential, immersive experience, I guess, is one way of putting it. But I was actually on a run and I was listening to this ad for insurance, and there's these two people arguing about which insurance is better. So you truly feel like you're sitting in the middle of two people having a conversation. Again, though, with that too, I think it's important to do that mindfully, where it's not disruptive to the user experience, but it's truly like something that can seamlessly flow in. One thing that I do want to mention as well is even with that, having the ability to have that transparency of that ad experience itself, to understand, did someone hear it? Did somebody listen to it for the first, second, third quartile? Was the primary message in the last part of the ad, but it was annoying and I like turned it off? Then is it an effective ad if just the ad itself played? So I think that kind of stuff is really important, and then goes back to what Elsa was saying, having that standardization in what counts as an impression, or what counts as measurement, or a listen through rate. There's so many different variations, and having that done by from an unbiased third party is, I think, again, really important, so you don't have so many different platforms and so many different data points that it's hard to digest from a data standpoint.
Absolutely. And I suppose we'd mentioned on it just previously there, Artur, but programmatic audio has been mentioned a few times now, and it's been earmarked as a key driver of future investment. Why do you think that channel is so important for audio?
Well, I think it's in general, it brings a lot of new benefits to the channel. Like the most obvious, of course, it's the efficiency of the activation, and that it helps advertisers and publishers. But it also unlocks a new layer of the targeting options that is available from something that we mentioned already, like basic ones, time of day, day of the week, and a bit more complex one like location targeting, or weather targeting, for example, or user targeting for that matter. Device targeting as well, sometimes overlooked, but given the current situations, the habits changed massively now. So more people working from home, so more people listening on smart TVs and smart speakers now, and that's also needs to be taken into account when we talk about, again, going back to the creative aspect and the creativity that you can use. The landscape changed, the habits changed, the devices that people are using, and I was actually very interesting to hear that the new environments that are being created that accept audio ads like in-game, for example, right now. So it's also very fascinating. And this is something that programmatic can enable to activate those audio ads across multiple publishers and environments, sometimes seamlessly even. So programmatic is growing significantly. It still represents quite a niche part of the digital audio, but something that was presented and mentioned in even eMarketer is showing that it's going to grow significantly in the next couple of years.
Okay. I'd like to add to that, just in a sense of we're talking about targeting and personalization. I think, and since we are in the concept of future, I think AI with natural sounding synthetic human voices, when you add this to all of the other possibilities we have in targeting and personalization, that's the possibilities, just they become endless in ways of you can just generate millions of different types of adverts and personalize them in every single like situation and for that individual. So I think that will be very interesting in the future to see.
Yeah, absolutely. The dynamic creative optimization and the opportunities that would hold is endless, really. And there's a couple of questions coming in, and I think it's one that we had earmarked ourselves anyway, as we hear lots of wider industry conversation around the demise of third-party cookies, the importance of first-party data for publishers. So really, I suppose, Elsa, from your side, what do you see the opportunity here for digital video?
Yes. Well, I think that at this point, it is important for us, for the publishers, to be ready for that. Advertisers will continue to want and need user demographics, and the way that to get that is through first-party data is through subscription, and with subscribed listening, we can provide quality data to advertisers that will add to targeting options, and that will be in our hands if we do it within first-party data options. But how I see it right now is that it's just important to prepare for this shift.
Okay, great. And Moomal, from your side of things, I suppose that first-party data and publishers and its importance, how are you working with audio publishers on a global basis?
Yeah, totally. So I think it's interesting. There's this whole thing about like third-party moving away from it, respecting privacy, all of that stuff. But there's an opportunity over here to go beyond just like the first-party data, like reg-based and things like that. So things like understanding moods and genres and that seamless experience. And then as Raquel also mentioned and Amy mentioned in the last session as well, which was the importance of contextual intelligence across podcast inventory. So when we think about like a British Airways, and a British Airways will not probably want their ads to be serving around something that has to do with a drunk pilot, lost baggage, and things along those lines, But on the flip side, there's this key opportunity for them to expand the scope of where they can serve their ads by unlocking inventory outside of the traditional travel category podcast. So it would be something like a tech category podcast talking about their favorite travel gadgets to take with them on vacation or something along those lines. And I think the last piece as well, from like the standpoint of like what is important and like how we're moving away from the first party data, there's so much in there, but it's also the ability to evolve that as well. So when you're thinking about like background music, you think about like engagement in ads and all of these different aspects, it really creates this opportunity to get way more innovative with what you can offer advertisers while keeping the consumer at the center, while keeping content at the center. Something I think we tend to forget sometimes in our industry, which is the publishers really do need to create this content and storytelling, and we need to be able to help protect that.
Absolutely. And there's some good questions coming in. I'm just conscious of getting to one of them. And I suppose we'll use this and then we'll go on to a couple of questions around the future. I'm conscious of time as well. It's a question from Alex Lintott from BBC World Service. So it's, what can we in the industry do to drive standardization of audio performance measurement to allow to see a clearer and holistic picture? Or is there a solution that some may already know about to help this? Artur, yeah, or Moomal, go for it.
All right. So from the moat perspective, because what we do is essentially data analytics, we have a certain methodology that is, you know, of course, we're like an unbiased third-party source. We have nothing really to do with the media buying experience or selling experience itself. And the fact that we're also audited by a third party who has nothing to do with it is always like this chain of accountability. From a standardization perspective, I think there's still a lot of evolution taking place, but in North America, at least, there's this unofficial, pretty much official at this point, standard of what counts as an audible ad. And that is whether or not the ad was audible for 2 continuous seconds. And there's a lot of studies done around this. And one of those studies from Pandora actually like dives into what it takes for an audience to digest and fully understand what a sonic identity is. So if you think of McDonald's ad, it's like, ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, I'm loving it. And that's like 2 seconds and you like kind of pick it up. So that's the starting point though. And then from there you go further into understanding, was it delivered to a human endpoint? Did somebody meet the first, second, third quartile? The last thing I'll mention on that piece as well is everyone in this audio world knows this. There's a lot of nuances from a technical perspective of how to get measurement and standard measurement across audio. Even though as a consumer, the experience may feel the same, some of these ads are server-side ad stitched. Some of them are client-side apps with open measurement SDKs integrated. So there's that thing that we're gonna have to like break out and like understand piece by piece and then find one umbrella way to be able to provide that measurement. So there isn't so much discrepancy constantly that the industry has to deal with.
Actually, to add to that as well, I agree with everything that was mentioned there. In terms of measurement specifically, it was like, it was a common theme today that this is the main challenge or one of the challenging aspects when it comes to measuring audio. And of course, we have the basic metrics like listen rates and impressions and reach that we can use now. Probably applicable to any channel, the measuring the actual return on investment from the audio ads, which is the main challenge right now. And actually referring to the IAB study that we did together with IAB Europe last year, the measurement piece was voted as the top challenge when it comes to increasing spend in digital audio. So I think if we can improve on that aspect, it will have the biggest impact on further investment going into this area.
I'd agree, absolutely. So I suppose measurement, a hugely important part of it, and I think we're all agreed that that needs to increase to ensure that spend keeps flowing as well. But let's talk a little bit about the future of it, the innovation, the bits that excite us and get us all out of bed in the morning. So Elsa, like if we look at the rise of smart speakers in the last 1-2 years, it's been phenomenal. Like what opportunities do you see in the audio environment for devices like that?
Well, there are so many. From my perspective, in Finland, we're still waiting for smart speakers to actually speak our language. So right now, we don't really have that. But looking at other language areas who actually do have smart speakers, the increase of audio has been great by that. So we're I think that smart speakers will make audio even more a part of the everyday life from the morning until the time you go to bed. So it'll be like a constant companion to you wherever you are, and of course the like syncing devices so that you can actually you can listen to the show, podcast or whatever digital audio you're listening to in the morning when you drink your first cup of coffee, and then you can just take it with you on your cell phone or in your car, in the smart devices in your car, and then shift it to your workplace. It's like continuously. It doesn't. The device is not the thing. The constant stream of audio is the thing. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Artur, consumption is fantastic, and we've seen a rise of it. We did some recent research with IAB Ireland, where we've seen 2 in 5 Irish adults now have access to a smart speaker. So just in the island of Ireland, smart speaker usage has been huge. From a commercial point of view and from an advertising point of view, we run smart speaker specific, and we're also starting to look into like two-way voice ads. Have you seen the same queries in your market and across the EMEA as well?
Yes, it's more right now as a testing and learning aspect of the digital audio and programmatic landscape overall. It's a fun tool to play with, to find out, hey, it's something new that we can do. Can we learn more about how the audience interacts with these ads, and if we can be more creative with the way we're delivering audio ads. Again, speaking with in terms of interaction with the creatives, it's a bit more challenging in some cases. So having the option of having this communication with the listener and having them respond to those creative ads using the voice, it's something interesting to test, definitely. But I'm seeing this as still a very evolving and new aspect. But again, as everyone mentioned previously, the adoption of speaker increased. I'm assuming it increased massively during the Amazon Prime Day as well. So it's one of the area to follow, definitely.
Okay, great. And I'm just conscious of time as well here. So I suppose one question for the entire panel to wrap it up, and Moomal, I'll start with yourself. And digital audio, as we know, has come a long way in the last 5 years and probably longer. But what do you personally think will be the biggest innovation in the next 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, there's going to be lots of innovations, and I'm hopeful for that, from engagement of ads, things like, finding ways to target better, whatnot. I think the biggest driver of innovation will probably be, and I know this is sounding like a shameless plug here, but it's probably going to have to be transparency and measurement into the ad experience. Because once we can do that, we're helping monetize that ecosystem of audio as well. We're helping monetize or helping sustain the monetization of publisher content. So once that happens, I think there'll be increased interest, and then that increased interest from advertisers and revenue pouring in will ultimately allow will allow the audio ecosystem to continue evolving. I think the next big thing probably will be engagement of audio ads, and it'll be engagement through voice, somehow talking to your smart speaker, not just around like, hey, play this song, but going well beyond that as well.
The tell me more at the end of the audio ad for the second round of engagement is an exciting one. So Elsa, what about yourself? What do you think the next 1 to 2 years brings in terms of audio innovation and where the market's going?
Oh, well, just to continue what Moomal was saying, I'd love to see some more engagement and interaction opportunities for the audiences, because right now audio and especially podcasts are a very one-way medium, and the interaction between the influencers or the podcast hosts or whatever and the listener happens in a separate platform, namely usually social media. So an audio platform that enables two-way interaction would be a big innovation, and that would add to the immersion of audio. Not saying that it'll happen in 2021, but it's something we are totally leaning forwards, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So Artur, we've got two-way voice ads, we've got better measurability and transparency. I love a bit of 3D and binaural audio. What about yourself? What do you think the next 12 to 24 months will bring the wonderful world of digital audio?
I think we will see a lot of innovation in the field in a lot of different aspects. Something that you said in terms of the most exciting things that excites me, that I'm looking forward in the next 24 months. And I'm going to look at this from a programmatic lens, is as programmatic audio scales and using of machine learning in this area, and being able to connect audio channel with other channels. I think that's going to be a big impact. And interestingly, it can help us with measurability of audio. If we can connect with our channels and say, hey, the mix of audio and display returns a much better return of investment, or we can record a better CPA when we're using a mix of those, that can help us to measure audio effectiveness in this way as well. In terms of like the biggest innovation, I'm probably going to be very conservative in this on this side. Still looking very optimistic in terms of audio in the future, because just a few years ago, it wasn't the topic that everyone is talking about. Now we have a lot of players coming in. Google showing so many things that they're doing recently. So we'll see improvements in all of the different aspects: the targetability, measurability, and just general ad serving as well. So all of the aspects going to improve, and as a result, the digital audio and programmatic capabilities will definitely.
Thank you so much, Artur. I am extremely conscious of time, and Clementina, I'm sure you're about to kick me out of this, not stuck to time, but look, it's such a fascinating topic. A big thanks to Moomal, Elsa, Artur, and thanks everyone for their time today as well.
Cheers, thank you.